So I recently hit 1,000 subscribers. At the time of filming this, I'm actually at 1,076. So a massive thank you to everyone who has subscribed and everyone who's liked and commented on my videos and shared them. I really, really appreciate it. So I thought I'd do something a little bit different for this video and do a Q&A. I've got a list of questions that have been sent in that I'm going to answer, so I hope you enjoy. So before I get started on the questions, I'd just like to say that I've recently set up a Patreon, so if you'd like to support the channel and get some bonus content as well, I'd really appreciate if you had a look at that. A link will be in the description. There's no pressure whatsoever to donate. I'm still going to continue making videos regardless, but if you do want to, it would allow me to spend some more time on creating videos, meaning more videos and more in-depth videos as well. So if anyone wants to check that out and consider pledging, then I'd be very grateful, but if you don't want to or you can't, then that's absolutely fine. Just watching my videos and sharing them still makes a massive difference, so thank you to anyone who does any of that. So the first question is, where is your accent from? And this is probably the most common question I get asked on the channel. So I'm originally from North Yorkshire, but it's kind of right on the border between North and West Yorkshire, and I'm now living in West Yorkshire, but I'm still only about 10 minutes away from where I grew up at. So yeah, it's kind of, generally speaking, just a Yorkshire accent, I guess would be the easiest thing to say. So the second question is, how did you get into true crime, or why? It's a little bit of a hard question to answer really, because I feel like it's just something that I've always been interested in. As a kid, I always used to like watching horror films, so I'm not sure if that maybe contributed to it. But yeah, even from a young age, I was always really interested in kind of local true crime cases like the Yorkshire Ripper and stuff like that. So it's an interesting question because I'm not really sure why anyone's into true crime. I mean, it is kind of a little bit morbid, I suppose, but I suppose it's just kind of a morbid fascination, really. I mean, I was always just into anything that was mystery related, whether that was true crime or people disappearing or conspiracies, anything like that. I've always kind of enjoyed like looking into things and doing some research on mysteries and that kind of thing in general. So yeah, I'm not really sure I could say exactly how or why I got into it. I just did, I suppose. What made you get into content creation, specifically the mystery genre, and who are your main influences? So again, I just think that's something that I've always had like a minor interest in. I mean, even from when I was about 10 years old, I used to play Club Penguin, and I used to make little music videos on there that I'd upload to YouTube, which are probably still out there somewhere, but I don't really care to look for them. But yeah, even at that point, I've always kind of enjoyed just editing and yeah, just, I mean, it's not even so much the process. I think it's just kind of like the final product that when you've actually got a video out there and it's something that you can at least be semi-proud of, like it's quite a good feeling to know that you've kind of created that from scratch. I think I've already kind of covered like the mystery genre in general, that yeah, it's just something that I've always been interested in, and you know, it's something that I've considered doing for quite a long time, probably a few years now really, but it's just one of them things that I'm sure, same with a lot of people who do YouTube videos, that they just kind of put it off for so long, just thinking, oh, I'm not going to get anywhere with it, or no one's going to be interested in watching my videos and that kind of thing. But I think just when we went into lockdown, I mean, I've just worked throughout it, so it's not like I've had any extra time off with it or anything, but it was just one of those things that I knew that more people would be watching YouTube, and, you know, maybe this might be a time where people might actually want to see some of the content that I put out there. But I've considered kind of doing it for a long time with a couple of different topics, but I just think when it really boils down to it, I do think mystery in general, including true crime and conspiracies and stuff like that, that's always been for a long time kind of my main interest, I'd say. So it just kind of made sense for me to do videos on that. So as for my influences, there's been a few true crime YouTubers that I've watched for quite a while. I've watched Kendall Ray for quite a long time, and Rob Dyke. Kaylee Elise is another one that I used to really like, but unfortunately I think she's just kind of given up the YouTube thing now. But she used to make some really good videos and just kind of really respectful and not too dramatized or anything, just kind of real life true crime cases. Lord and Arts is another one that I would say at least somewhat influenced me. I think Lord and Arts doesn't have as big a following as he deserves, but I think a lot of it is just kind of because he doesn't kind of over sensationalize things. It's just kind of very straight to the point. Let's look at these sources about this true crime case or about this disappearance, which I just think unfortunately doesn't appeal to people as much as, like, when you compare it to someone like Kendall Ray or to someone like Bailey Sarian. They're amazing YouTubers, absolutely brilliant, but it's a lot more, I'd say they're kind of more charismatic in a sense, and the more kind of it is a little bit more dramatized in a way, as opposed to something like Lord and Arts, where it's just kind of, here are the sources, let's look at these, let's separate fact from fiction, that kind of thing. But I would say that while my style's kind of quite different to his, I would say that he was an influence. As for kind of non-true crime, mystery-related topics, Nexpo is someone that I've watched for quite a long time that does a lot of videos on internet mysteries. Scare Theatre's another one that's really good, that just kind of does some internet mysteries, some kind of true crime stuff, just kind of really interesting mystery analysis videos in general. I'm sure there's more that I just can't think of off the top of my head. I did kind of look at the questions in advance and kind of think about roughly what I was going to say, but obviously it's not a scripted video at all, so I think now I'm kind of put on the spot. I'm struggling to think of any more, but I'm sure there will be, and I'll leave them in the comments if I end up thinking of any more. So the next question, I just saw you on my big screen yesterday and saw you had a piercing I never noticed before. Tell us all, Q&A. So I'm guessing this question is basically asking what piercings I have. I've got quite a few. The first ever piercings I got were pretty standard, just lobe piercings here. I think the second one I got was a cartilage piercing, which is just kind of the top of the hard bit of your ear. There's no point me actually showing you them all because I ain't got half of them in. But yeah, I've got my belly button done. Obviously, this is the visible one. This is a vertical labret. I've got my nose done. I've got my tongue done. But again, I don't have anything in them right now. I've got a tragus in the little triangle bit of your ear. So I also used to have hip piercings quite a long time ago, which sounds really weird. But they're just kind of little surface piercings with like a bent bar that goes through it. But yeah, they didn't go too well. One of them grew out and the other one just kind of got ripped out after it started growing out. So I've kind of just got little scars there now where they used to be. But I think that's it for my piercings. What is the most interesting case you have covered thus far? So this is a really tough question because I think all of the cases that I've covered, I've found them all really fascinating, or I wouldn't have done videos on them. One that comes to mind, I really enjoyed looking into the Joanne Romain case, and I think that's just because I kind of find mysteries where it's really ambiguous the most interesting. So with that, it's like, did she commit suicide or was she murdered? Now, if you've seen that video, you'll know that I do think she was murdered personally. But to me, the most interesting cases are those that aren't just so clear-cut, that it's not just kind of a clear-cut true crime case of this person got murdered by this person. Like, I find that kind of stuff interesting, but I just think I'm definitely more interested in mysteries than just kind of clear-cut true crime, if that makes sense. So, yeah, definitely cases where it could have been one thing or it could have been another, like the Joanne Romain case. Or one I did a long time ago, which probably looking back on it now is probably a pretty bad video. Like the first video I ever did is shocking when I look back on it now. But the case was really interesting. It was on Michelle von Emster. So that was a case where the official ruling was that she died of a shark attack, but then some people believe that she might have been murdered, which I just think is a really kind of obscure but very fascinating case where it's like you don't get many true crime cases where there's a possibility that someone could have been killed by a shark or they could have been murdered. So I found that one really, really fascinating to do. I also found the Maria Marta case that I did really interesting. This one was less so kind of ambiguous. You know, it was kind of more clear-cut true crime. I mean, they did think it was an accident at first, but, you know, as soon as they did an autopsy, they realised it was murder. But it was still kind of like, who killed her? Was it the family or was it a neighbour? Or could it have been someone else entirely? So yeah, that was a really interesting case. And I think that's just because there was so many twists and turns in it. I don't know if you've seen the documentary on Netflix, but that was just kind of a really fascinating ride. There was just so many twists and turns, and one minute you'd be convinced it was one person and the next minute you could be convinced it was someone else. So that, yeah, that was a really interesting one. But overall, I'm just not sure if I could say definitively what I think is the most interesting case because they've all been so interesting. What is the strangest internet thing you've found yourself? I've thought about this one since I got asked it, and I'm really not sure how to answer it. I do have one idea in mind, but I'm not sure if this is just, I don't think it's the strangest thing I've ever found. I think it's just because it's something that's kind of fresh in my mind because I covered it in my recent Reddit Mysteries video. So user Snapped Fingers on Reddit was someone who was posting on Reddit saying that they believed that in the Paris catacombs that there was a portal to hell and that there were interdimensional beings in there. So he was going to go in there and investigate. So that was a really kind of strange story from start to end. And to this day, it's still unsolved as far as I'm aware. We've never heard anything from the user since then. So I really hope they're okay. But yeah, I would say that's probably one of the most strangest things I've come across. I'll link this video up in the suggested if you haven't seen it yet and you're interested to know the full story, because it is quite a wild ride. So the next question is, are there any videos that you nearly made but ended up scrapping? So I feel like I've always got ideas in my head that I'm always kind of thinking, oh, that could make a video, or this could make a video. And quite often I don't think there's any that I've been totally set on that I've decided against. There's some that maybe one week I might think, oh yeah, I might do this as a topic, but then I might think of something else that I just think, oh, do you know what, actually I'm going to push that one back and I'm going to do this week. So I feel like for most of the ideas that I've had, they're all probably going to be done at some point. So I have this huge list of all my ideas, which is kind of all over the place. But yeah, if I'm ever kind of stuck for an idea, sometimes I'll just go to that list, and that's where anything goes if I kind of think of it and I think, oh, well, I'm not going to do it quite now, but maybe at some point later. So sometimes I don't really need to think of ideas. I mean, I've covered cases from Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries, or I've covered other ones that are kind of relevant to the current time. So I think the only ones that I've ever actually decided against doing is just cases that I might have heard of, but when I've really looked into it, there just hasn't been enough information to do a video on. I still want to do videos on those kind of cases, but there is somewhere, I don't know, it might be a missing persons case, and you could look on Charlie Project and there's literally 3 sentences about the disappearance, and there's just not a lot you can do with that really. But I am still very open to doing lesser known cases and cases that there might not be as much information about as others, because I do feel like they all kind of deserve some kind of spotlight on them, just because like the most common and the most popular cases tend to be the ones that are more in depth and there's more details on, but there's so many that so many people just aren't even aware of because there's not as much information on. And I'd like to also do videos on those kind of topics. What resources have you found work best for you in researching your videos? So Google would be the obvious one. Yeah, I couldn't do any of this without Google. But Reddit is also a very useful resource, particularly when it comes to, well, I suppose any kind of mysteries really, whether it's true crime or internet mysteries, because it's always interesting to go on there, and if the case has been discussed before, to see what people's thoughts and theories are on the mystery. You can also end up finding out other sources from there. Wayback Machine is always a really useful resource to use, because you can see things that might have been deleted a long time ago, or pages that aren't there anymore, so that's always really useful to have. When it comes to kind of Reddit mysteries, I'd say Remove Edit is always a really useful tool to use, because you can see comments and posts that have been deleted a long time ago. And in addition to that, I would say that some of the friends that I've made through the Internet Mysteries Sleuths Discord server, some of those have really helped me in the past, because there might be some kind of articles that I can't access due to my location, so I can just kind of put it on there and I know that someone's going to come back and tell me what it says or give me screenshots or something like that. So it's always useful to have other people, and especially other people who live in different countries, to be able to, you know, help out every now and again when you're researching topics. So the final question I'm going to answer is, what do you do other than YouTube? So not a lot really. I work in a supermarket just stacking shelves, so that's not really too interesting. In my spare time, I watch a lot of YouTube videos, some of those on mysteries or some of them on other kind of things that I find interesting. I watch some series and stuff on Netflix. You know, me and my boyfriend always have like a non-serious pick to watch kind of later on when we're falling asleep. So at the minute we've been watching Arrested Development, and that's really funny. We're watching Schitt's Creek before that, and that's another really funny one. So I do like kind of comedy series as well as, you know, mysteries and stuff like that. I'd say that a lot of the more serious films and series I watch tend to be more kind of mystery related or true crime related. I was watching The Stranger not too long ago. That's a really interesting series that's available on Netflix. The Fall as well is another one that's really good, true crime. When we're not in lockdown, I like to go out with friends every now and again. I used to go out on nights out a lot, but I don't really tend to do so that much anymore. It tended to be just kind of maybe once a month to go out to karaoke or something like that, or we'll always have a big night out on my birthday and on New Year's, and yeah, other than that, it's just sort of maybe go out for a few drinks or something like that. But again, haven't done that in a long time since lockdown, so yeah, I don't really live a very eventful life, but that's about all I do. A lot of my free time since lockdown has been spent doing YouTube videos. It does take a long time to research for these. Usually it doesn't take me too long to film and edit, but the research for it can take hours and hours and hours, so I tend to just kind of dedicate my weekends these days to just researching and writing my notes for my videos. But yeah, I think that's about all I do, really. So now we've got the questions out of the way, I just wanted to kind of finish the video off with a little bit of a kind of discussion on just what my plans are for the future of the channel and stuff. So for the most part, at least in the near future, I intend to just carry on as I have been doing, just doing mystery videos and true crime and stuff like that. But kind of long term, I don't just want to kind of solely focus on true crime and mysteries. I always want that to be like the focus of my channel, but I would like to kind of branch out a little bit and, you know, just do videos on general kind of, I don't know, I suppose internet things that I find interesting, which I did do a couple of videos like that when I first started my channel. So I did one on Reddit censorship, I did one on the Reddit island, and you know, I'd like to do kind of more of that kind of thing as well. I don't want to kind of make it so I'm doing less mysteries and less conspiracies and that kind of thing. But you know, hopefully long term I would be able to spend a little bit more time doing videos. So that is something that I would also like to do, just kind of, yeah, I suppose just internet phenomena in general, and also just kind of interesting things that I find interesting. I know that sounds really vague, but I have got a couple of ideas of things that I'm going to be working on in the not too distant future. I've got a couple of weeks booked off work in February for my birthday, so I'm probably going to spend quite a bit of that time working on hopefully quite a big video, or at least a 2-part video on something that's not true crime related. I don't want to give too much away now, but I might drop some subtle hints as we get closer and closer, but that isn't true crime related. But I do feel like it's one of those things that if you're into the videos that I've done already, then it might be something that you also find interesting. So basically, I think this channel is always going to be about mysteries and true crime, because that's what I primarily find interesting, and that's what all my subscribers up until now have subscribed for. But it is one of those things that I don't just want to stick to that, and I do want to do a little bit of variety. So I guess with that, I'm going to say if you have any suggestions of the kinds of topics that you might want to see that aren't kind of strictly mystery related, then please feel free to leave them in the comments. And my camera's just died and it takes hours and hours to charge, so apologies that the video's been cut out for this last bit, but I was pretty much just finishing up anyway. So yeah, I think that's everything that I've got to say in this video. I just wanted to thank everyone again for subscribing and commenting and liking and watching my videos in general. It really means a lot. So thank you again, and I will see you on Thursday for a new video.